Not all information blocks are created equal. This is lesson number 4 in the Architecture of Grammar. My name is Léandre Larouche. I'm the author of the Architecture of Grammar and I'm the founder of Trivium Writing. My goal is to make you the best writer you can be so that you can be successful at the things you do. Now, in the past videos, we've talked about the sentence pyramid and we've talked about the question words and we've talked about the information blocks and how to use them in your sentences. Now, in this last video specifically, we've talked about the order in which we should put the information blocks. Now, in this video specifically, I want to address 2 levels in the sentence pyramid, and these levels are clauses and phrases. And I want to show you how they have different functions, they have different weight, and so you have to be using them very carefully in order to write the best sentences that you can in order to be the most effective and the most compelling writer you can be. Now, we're going to be using some parts of speech that I'm going to describe. So nouns, we've already addressed that. Nouns are the people or the object doing the action in a sentence. So they are the who. The verbs, they are the actions being conducted in the sentence, so they are the what. Now, the adjectives, they modify the noun, so they give more information about the noun. And I forgot to put the adverbs, I'm going to add it here. The adverbs, they modify the verbs and give more information. For example, you could say, I walked quickly. And quickly would be the adverb because it modifies the verb walk. Now, prepositions show the relationship between words, and conjunctions show the relationship between clauses. Now, specifically in this video, like I said, we're going to be talking about clauses and phrases. And because we're talking about clauses and phrases, we're going to be talking about parts of speech and word roles because these are the foundation. These come at the bottom of the pyramid. We need those in order to create these phrases and clauses. Now let's start with phrases. Phrases are essentially just groups of words. So you could have, a noun, or you could have an adjective, or you could have a verb, and sometimes you'll have to put different words alongside that word in order to create the most meaning, because sometimes words just aren't enough to convey the meaning. You have to put other words as well, and that's what creates phrases. Now, of course, there are different types of phrases, and the types of phrases depend on the parts of speech that we are using for that specific phrase. So for example, we could have noun phrases, verb phrases, adjective phrases, prepositional phrases, conjunction phrases, and adverb phrases. For example, the noun phrase could be the beautiful man. The verb phrase could be is searching. So we have 2 words here. The prepositional phrase could be in 1910. So in is the preposition and that tells us the when. Now the adjective phrase, it could be very small or overly enthusiastic, and the conjunctional phrase could be as soon as quickly as, etc., etc. Now, the reason these are not created equal is because nouns and verbs, as we've mentioned, they are the grammatical requirement, the basic requirement to have a grammatical sentence. Remember, we have the who and the what. I'm just going to write who and what. So this is the basic grammatical requirement that we need. So these adjective and adverb phrases, they don't have as much weight because they merely add more information. They're not the core of the sentence. So that's why they're not as, they don't have as much weight. Now, let's move on to the clauses because the clauses are really important. And one of the lessons in the architecture of grammar is that clauses make or break sentences. And I want to show you why in just a moment. So, I'm repeating this a lot, but it's super important. It's the thing that matters the most. You need a who and a what to have a grammatical sentence. But now I'm going to add a caveat. If you put a conjunction before the who and the what, and you end the sentence there, you no longer have a grammatical sentence. Why is that? Well, conjunctions would be, for example, after, before, because. So in other words, it would be, for example, when or why, or, could be, there are a lot of different conjunctions that you could put in there. But anyway, so it implies that you're going to say something after that. So you no longer have a sentence, a grammatical sentence, because there are two types of clauses. The first one is a dependent clause, which is what you have right now. What makes it dependent is the conjunction, okay? So, what did I do there? It makes it dependent because now you need another clause which is independent. And so an independent clause would be Léandre drinks coffee. That's independent. It can be a sentence on its own, but after Léandre drank coffee, that is not a sentence. It cannot stand on its own. I would have to say after Léandre drank coffee, he went for a walk. So I would have a dependent and an independent clause. And so that would give me a full grammatical sentence. We call that a complex sentence. We're going to talk about all the different types of sentences in another video in this series. But in the meantime, you have to understand that there are dependent clauses and independent clauses. And the independent clause has the who and the what and nothing that makes it dependent on another clause. So the conjunction, and the cool thing about dependent clauses is it can add a lot of richness to your writing. It can add a lot of details, but you have to be careful, because if you start a sentence like this and you don't finish it, then it's incomprehensible. People cannot understand what you are trying to say, okay? So dependent clauses cannot stand on their own. They have a conjunction that implies we're going to finish the story, and the independent clauses stand on their own and they don't need anything else to make sense. So they are the end of the story. In other words, dependent, not the end of the story, independent, the end of the story. I hope that makes sense. I hope that you thought that this was valuable. Now I invite you to go to lesson 4 in the architecture of grammar and go through all the different, there are tables about the different phrases, and there are different types of clauses, and there's more information that I have time for in this video. So you can get all the details in lesson 4 of the architecture of grammar. There are also, as always, exercises, examples, very thorough explanations, so that you can really understand all the different elements that come into play when I say that the information blocks are not all created equal.